Good morning and welcome to Morning Gospel Fuel with Mr. G. It is Friday, February 4th, the fourth week of Ordinary Time, and it is the feast day of Saint Joan of France. She was briefly the Queen of France in the late 1400s, whenever she was the wife of King Louis XII. But that was a forced marriage, and he was presumably, evidently very abusive, and eventually their divorce and their marriage got annulled. Um, and then she became a nun and a foundress. She ended up founding a monastic order called the Sisters of the Annunciation of Mary, which I believe she is the patron saint of. So that is Saint Joan of France. Today's gospel is from Mark chapter 6, verses 14 through 29. Let's begin in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen. King Herod heard about it, for his fame had become widespread, and the people were saying, "John the Baptist has been raised from the dead. That is why mighty powers are at work in him." Others were saying, "He is Elijah." Still others, "He is a prophet like any of the prophets." But when Herod learned of it, he said, "It is John whom I beheaded. He has been raised up." Herod was the one who had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, whom he had married. John had said to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Herodias harbored a grudge against him and wanted to kill him, but was unable to do so. Herod feared John, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man, and kept him in custody. When he heard him speak, he was very much perplexed, yet he liked to listen to him. She had an opportunity one day when Herod, on his birthday, gave a banquet for his courtiers, his military officers, and the leading men of Galilee. Herodias' own daughter came in and performed a dance that delighted Herod and his guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask of me whatever you wish, and I will grant it to you." He even swore many things to her. "I will grant you whatever you ask of me, even to half of my kingdom." She went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for?" She replied, "The head of John the Baptist." The girl hurried back to the king's presence and made her request. "I want you to give me at once, on a platter, the head of John the Baptist." The king was deeply distressed, but because of his oaths and the guests, he did not wish to break his word to her. So he promptly dispatched an executioner with orders to bring back his head. He went off and beheaded him in the prison. He brought in the head on a platter and gave it to the girl. The girl, in turn, gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. All right, so we've got Herod's opinion of Jesus, because he originally thinks John is Jesus. But then we've got the death of John the Baptist, which we've probably heard before. Um, and there's two thoughts that come to mind, really, is we got this relationship with the daughter and the mother, in which, how the daughter does what the mother asks, which kind of makes you think, because oftentimes you always hear, like, you have to, the fourth commandment, honor your mother and father, do what your mother and father say, which is God's commandment. You can't fault that, it's the law. But also, how is it that we know that your parents or those who are closest to you in authority are rooted in virtue? Because clearly the mother gave some bad influences of saying it was okay to her daughter, for her daughter to ask for the head of somebody else, presumably, murdering them. Um, so that's something that we need to always keep in mind, is make sure that our main source is rooted in God, which is the whole purpose of parenting. That's why the hierarchy, the order of which you should prioritize your life, is God, your spouse, which is your marital relationship, and then the children. God has to be the foundation, and clearly that was not the case for this mother, who is supposedly guiding her daughter, her child. Um, And so that's something that we could always reflect upon, is make sure that we're rooted in our foundation as in God the Father. And then also, something that speaks out is the grudge that Herodias harbored against John the Baptist for speaking up and saying it wasn't lawful for you to marry your brother's wife. Um, so Herodias harbored a grudge against him and wanted to kill him, but was unable to do so. So every single one of us have people that have hurt us, most likely people that at one time we were very close with. And once they hurt us, we are more easily susceptible to hold a grudge against them and lack forgiveness. We've all had that, I'm sure. So I think the challenge is to work on finding and reaching that level of forgiveness, because if we don't forgive others, how do we expect God to forgive us of our wrongdoings, of this really impossible standard that we're asked to live up to? So if you have somebody that you were really close with at one time, I think it's a good, and this is, I came across this in a motivational video one time I was listening to a few years ago. And it's to develop the courage to call somebody that has hurt you, and don't bring up whatever it was that hurt you, but just maybe recognize the fact that you didn't see eye to eye on something, but at one point you had a good relationship and you really admire and appreciate and you're thankful for that relationship, and that you are glad that they're a part of your life. Turn it completely positive and see what that does, because that really brings you to a path of healing and forgiveness, so that you can finally let go of that grudge that is most likely holding you captive. So I would invite you to pray about that, think about that, about how you would approach that, because we can say it in prayer, but it really isn't until we make it tangible in the world that we live in and material. It's harder to infiltrate through our heart. So with all that being said, have a great day. God bless. Keep it real. Stay safe out there. It's pretty cold with a lot of snow and ice. In the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.